The Independent Electoral Commission has confirmed that former President Jacob Zuma's face will appear on the ballot paper for the Umkhonto weSizwe party. This is despite the body's appeal to the Constitutional Court seeking clarity on a prior ruling over his eligibility for the May 29 elections. IEC CEO Sy Mamabolo, who joins us this evening to clarify a few issues for us. Good evening to you, Mr. Mamabolo, and thank you very much for your time. Let's begin with that of the former president, Jacob Zuma. You're saying that you're ready to print these ballot papers, but is that cast in stone right now, or could matters change in relation to the MK party?
Well, just a few things. One, we have to start the printing of the ballot papers tomorrow. In fact, we ought to have started last week. And because of the electoral court matters that we had, we are delayed. But we can no longer accommodate further delays. Otherwise, we are impairing our ability to deliver sufficient ballots to all voting stations. So that's a very important logistical consideration on our part. Secondly, there are two concepts which are related but not the same. One is the candidature. The Commission is on record having said that it is seeking clarity from the Constitutional Court in relation to its power vis-a-vis Section 47(1)(e) of the Constitution. So that matter will be heard in time. As regards the design of the ballot paper, the following principles are at play in the design of the ballot paper. That is, the use of the full registered name of the party. Secondly, the registered abbreviated name of the party or acronym. Thirdly, the logo or the emblem of the party. And lastly, the use of the photograph of the registered leader of a political party. Now, in respect of MK, early last week, we received a notification in terms of Regulation 9 to Regulations on the Registration of Parties, indicating that Mr. Kumala is no longer the leader of the party. The leader of the party is now Mr. Jacob Zuma. Now, that being the case, and in line with the agreed, the resolved principles by the Commission on ballot design, Mr. Zuma will thus be, the photograph of Mr. Zuma will be used on the ballot in respect of the MK party.
Yeah. So, perhaps one of the key issues here, Mr. Mamabolo, is that of the former President Jacob Zuma's candidature. Yes, you have approached the Constitutional Court. Has that court responded to you in relation to whether or not it will give you an ear?
Not at this stage. Of course, we have asked for an expedited hearing, but of course the Constitutional Court has to look at the papers, decide whether this is a matter worthy of an urgent and expedited hearing. So we hope that they'll give an indication in the not too distant future.
Sure. It does complicate matters. Let's talk about the issue around the MK emblem or the MK logo. There are developments in regard to that, and the understanding is that the ANC is now effectively the owner of this name, Umkhonto weSizwe. There is a pending outcome in relation to that. How does that complicate matters for you should the court come back and say the MK cannot use that particular name or logo?
Well, it's a complicated affair, no doubt about that. However, the Commission is at the point where it has to start the printing of the ballot papers tomorrow. Failing that, we run the great risk of being unable to provide sufficient ballot papers to voting stations. So, if for one or the other reason the court makes a call, it is something that we will deal with at that point. But to wait and be in a state of inertia will in fact be compromising the ability to have a successful election. So we are proceeding on the basis of all identifiers registered with the Commission.
You may have answered this a little earlier today at your media briefing about the wisdom of the IEC going to the Constitutional Court to seek clarity on Mr. Zuma's candidature. How do you respond to those who have said that this is ill-advised?
No, it is not. We think it's the right course of action to take, because as we speak, you and I and all South Africans are not in the know as to whether the Commission has any role in relation to enforcing Section 47(1)(e) of the Constitution. That matter requires the highest court with constitutional matter jurisdiction to make a determination. 2, the court itself imposed the 15-month sentence. It is the best course to give us an indication as to whether a remission thereof in effect reduces the sentence to 3 months. And lastly, we are not in the know as matters stand whether one of the commissioners prejudged the issue. So it is important that those matters are finally determined so that all of us as a country can be aware what Section 47(1)(e) actually means and the role of the Commission in its enforcement. Whether we have a role at all or we don't, we need that determination for this case, but also for future elections.
Does it worry you that the Electoral Court, unless, of course, I missed it, to this day, it has not given the actual full text of its reasoning behind you, the IEC, losing this matter and now being forced to go to the Constitutional Court for clarity? Have you seen that judgment?
No, we have not. And the legal principle is that, of course, when you have reasons, all the better. But when you appeal against the orders and not the reasons themselves. So while it's helpful, they're not absolutely essential, but it helps if you have them. Now, look, the one understands the Electoral Court has been inundated with a number of matters. In fact, I've not seen an Electoral Court as busy as this one has been ahead of an election. So one understands that the cost load there at the moment is quite substantial, and we hope that in time those reasons will be forthcoming.
Yeah. All right. On to other matters, because today's briefing was also somewhat technical, but perhaps on matters less technical. Some people may not be aware that applications for special votes are open, and I'm saying this because I'm one of those who were perhaps very early, and I have gotten my confirmation, and I know where I'll be voting for my special vote. When are these open, and what will the closing date be?
It is important that every one of us is aware that those of us who are in special circumstances, who have perhaps impaired mobility and thus unable to travel to voting stations, can apply, or they can call someone to make an application on their behalf. Applications opened yesterday, the 15th of April, and they'll so remain until they close on the 3rd of May. So all of us who are unable due to impaired mobility to travel to voting stations can be visited at home on the 2 days preceding election day, and that is the 27th and the 28th of May. But there are others, almost anybody who's unable to be at their voting station on election day. They can apply to go vote at their voting station on the 27th and 28th. So it's a very open process for everyone who may not be able to be at their station on election day. You have an opportunity if you apply to vote on either the 27th or the 28th of May.
South Africans who live outside of the country for work reasons and any other, and I'm speaking with particular reference to the Australian matter, given what the Democratic Alliance has had to take you to court for, and you are now, or you have been forced to make arrangements. Where are things in that regard?
Well, since we've received the orders of the Electoral Court, we've written to our counterparts at DECO, inviting them to indicate how they intend to implement those orders. Because the IEC really has no international relations mandate. We rely on the facilities that DECO establishes. So we are awaiting their response in that regard. But at the same time, we really think that this is a matter which raises important constitutional matters as well as matters of international law. Because insofar as we understand, honorary consuls are not South African citizens. They are not on the South African voters' roll. Some of them don't hold offices. They work from their homes, because these are essentially business people who are appointed by South Africa to look after their trade interests and so on. So that order does raise a number of difficulties logistically, but we want to be guided by DECO as to how it may or may not be able to implement those orders of the of the Electoral Court. So we have asked the Electoral Court firstly to provide reasons, and after that we've submitted application for leave to appeal to the Electoral Court itself for the matter to be remitted to the SCA for hearing.
Finally, and very briefly, Mr. Mamabolo, crucially, in this election, we're going to have 3 ballot papers. Just in the simplest way possible, explain to South Africans tonight what each ballot paper will represent and why it is that South Africans should really not be stressed about it.
Yes, let's put it this way. For the elections of the National Assembly, there will be 2 ballot papers. The first ballot paper is to elect representatives from a province into the National Assembly. And independent candidates will be on a ballot paper for that election. The second ballot paper for the National Assembly, it's a compensatory proportional representation ballot. It's really contested by only political parties. It's meant to ensure that there's intra-party proportionality in line with the demands of the Constitution, that the result of an election must in general be proportional. So those are the 2 ballot papers for the National Assembly. The third ballot is for the provincial election, for the election of members of provincial legislatures. There, independent candidates as well as political parties will co-appear on the ballot paper.
And that is that. Thank you very much, Sy Mamabolo.